What's up, Raider fans? Welcome back to another edition of the Vegas Nation Fan Zone. I am Sam Gordon. Happy to be with you again on this Tuesday afternoon, talking a little Raiders after their 30-27 loss to the Los Angeles Chargers last Thursday. Seems like forever ago now, but it was only 5 days. Before we get into any questions, just going to give a couple of my thoughts on the game and kind of where the Raiders stand. Obviously, after a 6-3 start, being 7-7 is a big disappointment. Going 1-4 over that stretch, really could have been 0-5 if not for a dastardly call by then Jets defensive coordinator Greg Williams, who, as we know, has since been fired, relieved of his duties. Raiders kind of had an opportunity for a last stand on Thursday at Allegiant Stadium to keep pace in that playoff race, and did so without Derek Carr, who got hurt in the first quarter. Marcus Mariota, I thought, was tremendous in relief coming off the bench, going 17 of 28 for the 226 yards, the touchdown, and really bringing a new dynamic at that quarterback position with his ability to move, with his ability to run, to scramble, to make something from nothing, and, of course, to execute zone reads and quarterback keepers. He carries 9 times for 88 yards, gets the Raiders' running game back on track, 41 carries, 173 yards, and the 2 touchdowns, touchdown by Josh Jacobs as well. Of course, kind of the same old story, right? The defense struggled to stop Justin Herbert, especially on crucial drives when it mattered. The Chargers actually had a couple opportunities to win that game with kicks in regulation. They did not go down. I thought Mariota's drive in overtime was spectacular. Maybe revisionist history, maybe 20/20 hindsight, but going for it on 4th and goal from the 4 or 5 yard line might have given your team a better chance to win than putting the game in the hands of a defense that had struggled to stop the rookie phenom Justin Herbert. He gets the ball back, of course, drives the length of the field, and quarterback sneaks his way into the end zone. So, yeah, it's a new defensive coordinator, but more of the kind of the same old struggles that the Raiders had throughout the course of the season with Paul Guenther. I mean, I don't think Rod Marinelli's presence, Gruden gave Marinelli his props and thought there was a positive energy, a good energy. But in terms of the way that the team performed, I did not notice much of a difference. Still no pass rush, still trouble generating turnovers or game-changing plays. The defense, again, has been the story of the season, and I think that the number one thing going into next year is going to be how to address that defense and how to give that defense a makeover. There are certainly talented players and certainly players that have a lot of potential on that defense. There's some talent there, but as a whole, the unit really hasn't quite clicked throughout the course of the season. So that's going to be something to address. As we know, the Raiders are not completely out of the playoff picture yet. There's still, a 2 or 3% chance or whatever the odds may be if they win out and teams like Baltimore lose out and other teams that are in the mix for those playoff bursts struggle. But it appears it would be unlikely. Again, another disappointing finish to what was a very, very promising season here on Las Vegas. But there are some positives to take away. I think John Gruden and his staff have built a competent and at times what looked at times, again, clear here, at times to be an elite offense. I thought the offense took kind of a step back over that 5-game swoon, started to turn the ball over more. The running game wasn't where it needed to be or wasn't where it was earlier in the season, kind of a lot of pressure on Derek Carr. And as a result, there are more turnovers, more struggles, things of that nature. But we saw what it could be with Josh Jacobs when he's full speed, when he's going. He's a bruising physical back with Darren Waller, who I don't think there's any question at this point is one of the top 2 or 3 tight ends in the NFL and one of the best playmakers, one of the best difference-making kind of players in the NFL on the offensive side of the ball in general. The offensive line, I thought for the most part was impressive, given the injuries to Richie Incognito and given the Trent Brown saga that will I'm sure will get resolved in some way, shape, or form during this offseason. But just not good enough this year to make the playoffs as a whole, the team, or it certainly appears that way. So tough Miami Dolphins team with plenty to play for. I mean, at 9-5, a win or 2 puts them right in prime position for the playoffs. And the Raiders are going to want to play spoiler, knock them off, and keep their playoff hopes alive. So with that, if there's anybody tuned in that has any questions, feel free to fire them away in the chat feature, or you can tweet them at me on Twitter at @BySamGordon or at Vegas Nation. We don't have any questions yet as of right now. So until we get some questions, I guess I'm just going to continue to fire away with some key talking points this season. particularly this week. As far as Derek Carr is concerned, he is going to be speaking to the media this afternoon. So I imagine we're going to learn more about his status, where he stands after that groin injury. I would surmise that he's going to try and gut it out and play if he is healthy. We know what kind of competitor he is. He's going to want to be out there and do everything he can in his power to make sure the team has every fighting chance, whether it's 2 or 3%, whatever glimmer of hope the team has for the playoffs, he's going to want to be out there to lead his team. He's had an excellent season. I don't think the Raiders could have asked for much more out of their quarterback, who's now in his 7th year. I mean, he's been in the league a long time. At 29 years old, who's in the prime of his career and put forth a prime season. If he doesn't go, it's going to be Marcus Mariota, of course. And we get our first question, 916 Raider. Do you know if Carr will start a quarterback this weekend? Unclear. I believe that's unclear at this point. We're going to learn more, I'm sure, this afternoon. The timetable for his injury looked to be 10 to 14 days. And Thursday to Saturday, you look at that, that's 10 days. So that's probably a kind of a liberal timeline. But if there's any risk to further injury, or if it's going to limit or compromise his mobility, I don't think he's going to go. And it gives the Raiders a chance to look at what they have with Marcus Mariota, right? We saw Mariota, who, again, was brought in by this coaching staff to be the highest paid backup in the NFL at the time. Now, that's since changed with Carson Wentz, who wants his way out of Philadelphia, according to a report from ESPN this weekend, if he's not the starter. But at the time, he was brought in to be the highest paid. He was brought in as the highest paid backup in the NFL. He's a guy that was a former number 2 overall pick, and you don't become the number 2 overall pick without being talented. There were some issues in Tennessee. It never really quite worked out. I don't think he was ever put in the ideal situation to take advantage of his unique skill set, a skill set that won him the Heisman Trophy and got his Oregon Ducks to the national championship during his last year with that program. But with the Raiders, it would make sense to give him a look if Carr can't go and see what you have. I mean, he's only making 7 point whatever million, not super expensive if he turns out to be your starter. And maybe the Raiders see what they have with him and decide that he's the guy that they want to move forward with. I'm not sure. That is just purely speculation. Derek Carr, again, has played at a Pro Bowl level this season. Even though he wasn't named to the Pro Bowl, played at a Pro Bowl level. He's been excellent, but Mariota was also excellent on Thursday as well. And I believe it would make sense for him to warrant another look. 916 Raider with a follow-up question. What do you think about Jacobs and Waller being in the Pro Bowl? As far as Darren Waller is concerned, I don't think there's any question that he deserves that honor. And I would be surprised, 916 Raider, if he is not also a All-Pro, named to the All-Pro second team. To me, that's more prestigious, being an All-Pro than actually making the Pro Bowl itself. But he's proved over the last 2 years, really, that he's one of the elite playmakers, not just in the tight end position, but at any position on the offensive side of the ball. At 6'5", 6'6", actually, 255. He's fast, he's big, he's physical. There's no route he can't run. And the Raiders were really creative this year. John Gruden and that offensive staff with Greg Olsen and those guys were really creative in lining him up in different formations and using his skill set in ways that presented challenges for opposing defenses. Over the last 3 games, he combined for 425 yards. That's most ever for a tight end in a 3-game span. So him making the Pro Bowl, definitely a deserved honor. I was a little more surprised. I mean, congratulations to Josh Jacobs for making the Pro Bowl. It was a little bit more surprising given his yards per carry this year. He was a 4.8 yards per carry back last year, only 3.7 this year, and only had 200-yard games in the games that he played. Now, the raw numbers, the productivity, the 907 yards, and the 10 touchdowns are there. Those are among the leaders in the AFC. But I don't think he was quite the same in terms of how he looked and the impact that he had on the game this season as he was last season. But again, congratulations to Josh Jacobs. He showed up. He played through some injuries. He was banged up. He gave it everything he had, and he played behind a banged-up offensive line and still did his best to propel the Raiders to victories. And in games this year against the Kansas City, the Denver Broncos, and the Cleveland Browns, he was huge. He was crucial in those victories, and I think the first Kansas City game as well, helping the Raiders grind out yards at the end of the game as they looked to salt away the clock and scoring a couple key touchdowns. So those guys are Pro Bowlers. Again, I think there's no question that there's absolutely no question that Waller is an all-pro kind of guy, and Jacobs has proven over the last couple of years that he is as tough as they come at the running back position, even if the numbers aren't quite what they were last year. Still a heck of a player. Reen BT, will Marinelli go back to being the D-line coach, or is he gone? I'm not sure. That's a great question. I think it's going to depend a lot on who John Gruden decides to bring in as his defensive coordinator next year, and if he gives his defensive coordinator any agency or how much say he gives in his defensive coordinator to put together that defensive staff. Marinelli's a vet. He's been there and done that for a long time. He's had an excellent coaching career and has been very, very accomplished in this league. But I don't think we know until we know who that defensive coordinator is. A couple of the names, our Vinny Bonsignore has reported that Wade Phillips is interested in being the permanent defensive coordinator. You also hear names like Raheem Morris, the interim coach down in Atlanta, that worked on John Gruden's staff when Gruden was in Tampa Bay. But Rob Marinelli definitely has had a successful coaching career, and I'm sure he's going to campaign to keep his job this offseason. 916 Raider, another question. Hudson and Ingold, I feel like got snubbed from Pro Bowl. Your thoughts? I think Ronnie Hudson is as good as a center as there is in the league, without a question. I mean, he definitely feels to me like a Pro Bowl kind of player, and as one of the most productive centers in the league year in and year out. So yeah, you can make the case that he got snubbed. I think when you look at those offensive line positions, it's a little harder to evaluate when it comes to Pro Bowl, but they tend to favor offensive linemen unless you're just like super dominant. They tend to favor offensive linemen from winning teams and that are part of really dominant offenses. So that's no fault of Ronnie Hudson's. He shows up day in, day out, year in, year out, puts forth his best effort, and again, one of the best offensive linemen and one of the best centers, if not the best center in the NFL. So unfortunate for him that he doesn't make the Pro Bowl, but I do not think that takes away from the kind of season he had. As far as Ingold's concerned, look, it's kind of tricky, I think, with a fullback. I mean, he does play a prominent role in the Raiders offense when he's right. But given that the running game kind of vanished over the course, up until Mariota took over the other day, I don't think that he had too strong of a case. Also, the fullback, I mean, again, they use the fullback, but he's not necessarily a huge part of their offense. He only logged playing time on 20% of the snaps. I'd have to look at the numbers and look around the league and look at the numbers of the guys who made it. But I imagine that there are other fullbacks that were bigger part of their respective offenses that in turn got the burst or got more consideration than Ingold did. So yeah, those are the questions we have so far. Remember, keep firing away. I will be here to visit for the next 5 to 10 minutes. If you have any questions, I will do my best to answer them. Until I get more, we're going to look ahead at the Miami game. Miami Dolphins come in here again 9-5. Rookie quarterback Tua Tagovailoa has been. I don't think he hasn't been Justin Herbert or Joe Burrow, but he's been very good in kind of more of a game manager role as he adjusts to the NFL. They have a big time defense, and then Tua is asked to make plays in certain situations, and he's done a good job about cashing in on that. The Raiders are going to have to pressure him and have to make him uncomfortable, in my opinion, and they're also going to have to sustain long drives and take care of the ball. This is an opportunistic Miami defense that has 16 interceptions this year, led by the Pro Bowl corner Xavier Howard, who has 9 interceptions, had 7 interceptions in 2018. This defense gets after it. They force turnovers, and taking care of the ball is paramount. You cannot turn the ball over against this Miami Dolphins team, and because they will make opposing offenses pay for doing so. We have another question regarding the COVID-19 list. Let's see here. What about new players on COVID from 916 Raider? The reserve COVID list right now: Eric Harris, Isaiah Johnson, Tanner Muse, Henry Ruggs, and Daryl Worley. Those guys are on the list. So not good. Certainly you're right in terms of not the defense having fresh bodies and being as healthy and as deep as possible. It's been a struggle for the Raiders this year. I mean, I think all teams in the NFL have dealt with the coronavirus. I think none more than the Baltimore Ravens, but the Raiders are right up there in terms of guys that they've had on the list and in terms of the injuries that they've had on their defense to compound those guys on the coronavirus list. So it's been kind of a patch job, and John Gruden is having to patch things together, and the defensive coordinator, Paul Gunther, when he was here, and Rob Marinelli now having to patch things together on that defensive side of the ball. I mean, it's definitely been a struggle, but this is a war of attrition. This is a battle of attrition. Injuries have happened throughout the course of the year. Like, every team is affected in some way, shape, or form by injuries. The Raiders are clearly no exception, and then the virus this year as well. So those are the guys right now that are on that list. 916 Raider, we need to put Joyner at safety. I mean, Joyner has thrived as a safety earlier in his career. I mean, with the Rams, he was a playmaker at safety, and the Raiders have had some struggles at times on the back end, finding stability in that defensive backfield, specifically at that safety position. We know Jonathan Abram is a heavy hitter. He likes to bring the wood. And then, of course, Jeff Heath is more of a ball hawk type. He has a couple interceptions this season and is a playmaker too, but not necessarily the kind of depth that you want back there. And then those guys also have given up big plays on the back end too. So it's really, though, I think the way the defense is played, I mean, it goes through all three levels. There's supposed to be the better defensive units. There's some synergy there. Defensive line generates pressure, helps out the linebackers and the safeties. The safeties, the better the coverage is, more time that you allow the pass rush to generate pressure. So it's things that go hand in hand, and the Raiders haven't had any of those. Reen BT, do you think Lynn Bowden Jr. is going to make the Raiders regret trading him? Yeah, I do. I already think that in a way he's making the Raiders regret trading him. It's only been a couple weeks. He's been acclimated or implemented into Miami's offense a lot by necessity because they're dealing with some injuries of their own. But it's been a productive 3 weeks, and it looks like, I mean, he's a receiver, and that's what he played for the most part in college, along with some quarterback. And they're playing him at receiver. They're not trying to make him something he's not, like the Raiders tried to make him a running back. He's not a running back. He's either a quarterback or a receiver, and the Dolphins are using him as a receiver and implementing. I saw them implement him in a kind of a gadget play where they gave him the option to throw the ball last week. He ends up keeping it for 9 yards, but he's a productive player. December 6th against the Bengals, 4 catches, 41 yards. And then against the Kansas City Chiefs, the defending Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs, might I add, 7 catches, 82 yards. And then last week in a big win over New England that knocks New England out of the playoffs for the first time in what feels like a century, he goes for 6 receptions, 37 yards. They clearly recognize that he had a unique skill set and are maximizing him or working to maximize him more than the Raiders did. Of course, the Raiders didn't even they got rid of him before the season even started. They let him go before training camp. He didn't even make it to the season. So Miami, credit their coaching staff, credit Chan Gailey, the veteran offensive coordinator, and credit Brian Flores and their player personnel for figuring out how to use this guy. The Raiders never did, or clearly didn't optimize him. And he's has a chance to be a productive player and pretty unique there in that slot receiver position for the Dolphins. Again, guys, I'm here for a few more minutes. Keep the questions coming if you are available, or if you are tuned in. We have, again, a few more minutes for some questions. If we don't have any questions, we're going to talk more about the Miami game. Henry Ruggs, 916 Raider asks, Henry Ruggs playing against the Dolphins, still on the coronavirus list, too soon to say. So, I mean, he would have to come off that list and probably get a couple practices in to make sure he's good and that he's got all his faculties and his wits, depending on what his bout with the virus is like. So I'm not sure. I think we'll learn more about that as the week goes on. We haven't talked to John Gruden since last Friday. He's going to be available today, and these are questions that I think are really important and that I'm sure we're going to ask, whether it's myself or my colleagues at Vegas Nation or other media that cover the team. But again, more questions. If not, we're gonna wrap up here pretty soon. But again, some more thoughts on the Dolphins. If Derek Carr can't go and it is Marcus Mariota, I'm curious to see what kind of game plan they put in place, the Raiders put in place, and if Miami is more ready for him than the Chargers were. I think there's an element of surprise for the Chargers. I mean, they're not a great defensive team anyways, but when you prepare all week for a Derek Carr who's mobile but not exactly a runner, and then he leaves the game, Mariota, who's not just mobile, but he's a runner. I mean, one of the fastest quarterbacks in, dare I say, NFL history. I mean, one of the top dual threat prospects to ever come into the NFL. He's going to do some things that you weren't expecting. So I think without knowing, and maybe Raiders coach John Gruden, maybe Gruden plays this tight to the vest and doesn't disclose what quarterback is going to start until the very last second. So that way the Dolphins have to prepare for kind of 2 guys and they can't commit to their focus to preparing for 1. So with that, I think Mariota, if he does go, again, curious to see what kind of game plan they use, if they continue to incorporate some of those zone reads, and if they do even more stuff that uses mobility on the fly. And then in turn, is Miami more ready for that than the Chargers were? We got a question about Collins. I'm assuming that's Malik Collins, his status for the game. I believe he's still on injured reserve. Yeah, he's on injured reserve, and until he's activated and gets a practice or 2 or 3 or maybe more under his belt, he's not going to be back. So I would not expect him back for for Saturday. Again, when you're going into reserve, you got to sit at least 3 games. I think he's only been out 2 so far. So they're probably not going to have him, and they can use it. I mean, they could use all the depth they possible on that defensive line. I know Malik Collins, big ticket free agent. Somebody saw it to be a game changer on that defense. He hasn't quite had the season they expected him to have, and then on top of that, the injury to boot at this point in the season. A little bit of a struggle for him, but that's the game, that's the business. So Arnett also, 916 Raider also asked about Damon Arnett. And I do not expect him to play. I mean, he was in the concussion protocol unless he clears the concussion protocol. Not saying he's out yet. We don't know. We're going to find out a lot of this stuff today. We haven't talked to John Gruden yet. Damon Arnett has been banged up. Is unfortunate. First round corner, been banged up throughout the course of the season. Hasn't played in as many games as I know the Raiders would have liked him to, and you haven't quite been able to see what he can do out there on the perimeter in that secondary. We'll learn more throughout the course of the week. So that is all I have for today with the Vegas Nation Fan Zone. We appreciate you rocking with us, and most importantly, hope everybody has a healthy, safe, and happy holiday. Enjoy the game on Saturday. We'll be with you. Follow all our content at vegas.com. Follow me on Twitter at @BySamGordon.